Computer recreations keep coming from Retro Games Ltd, which started all the way back in 2018. We've seen reimagined Commodore computers, then the joint venture with Atari, and it was only a matter of time before this next one came out. Let's check out the Spectrum. Hi and welcome to Evan's Retro Lane. Occasionally the retro community are treated to something special. Some of us purchase items for the pure nostalgia of reliving a happier, simpler time. And in other cases, like mine today, I get to experience a computer I've only heard about and seen ads for in magazines back in the day. So let's first check out the history of a popular computer that was released all the way back in 1982. With the success of 8-bit computers released from as early as 1977, many other companies looked at developing their version of an affordable personal computer. One such company was Sinclair Research over in the United Kingdom. The founder, Clive Sinclair, started the company in 1973, changing names to ultimately be Sinclair Research. In 1980, Sinclair entered the personal computer market with the ZX80, then a year later, the ZX81. The ZX in the name implies that these computers use the Zilog Z80 8-bit processor compared to the MOS 6502 used in Apple, Atari, and Commodore computers. In 1982, Sinclair released the ZX Spectrum. Keeping to a similar form factor as the previous ZX80 and 81, for the time, many computer users were amazed at how small yet powerful this personal computer was. Starting with 16 kilobytes or 48 kilobyte RAM variants, this tiny machine's main competitors were the Commodore 64, BBC Micro, Dragon 32 and Amstrad CPC. There were a few downsides compared to these other computers though. For example, the Commodore 64's RAM, graphics and sound blew everything else out of the water. Another distinct feature of the ZX Spectrum was the rubber chiclet keyboard, which isn't the best to use, but it enabled the computer to be sold at a competitive price. For the small price of £125, you got a small colour personal computer, decent sound, and was more than capable of running the same games you would find on any other popular computer. The main way of loading and saving programs on the ZX Spectrum was by using cassette tapes. Later models included a 3-inch floppy disk drive, as you would find on the Amstrad CPC. This was because in 1986, Amstrad acquired the ZX Spectrum range. In Europe, the ZX Spectrum became very popular, improving over time, ultimately being discontinued in 1992, having sold around 5 million units. Fast forward to 2024, we now have the Spectrum. My first impression of the box art is that it looks great. Retro games are known for keeping to the original box design of the product they release. Okay, let's take it out of the plastic wrapping. This version of the box is the original UK release, which includes a mini version of Crash magazine, adding to an authentic retro experience. Crash magazine was originally published between 1984 and 1991, dedicated to ZX Spectrum users. We also see here that the Spectrum comes with 48 games included, which is really nice. I'm also guessing that 48 was chosen to match the 48K version of this computer. On the right side, we see all of the features. This can emulate the 16, 48, 128K versions as well as the +2 and +2A. We can save and resume games, rewind games up to 40 seconds, perfect for those difficult old school games, multiple display options and CRT filter, 12 attractive frames to fill the edges of the screen, 720p display at 50 or 60 Hz. As I mentioned earlier, the original Spectrum was popular in Europe, so the majority of games were developed for the Power Video system. Just keep that in mind when it comes to setting up the refresh rate. And of course, USB support for controllers, keyboards, storage devices, and firmware updates. And on the back, we see some of the featured games included with some box art and screenshots. We also see that 35 out of 48 of these included games are considered Crash smashes, buy the original magazine. As with all Retro Games Ltd products, we can use a USB stick to load additional games. On the left side we see a description of the contents. The Spectrum with authentic fully working keyboard, a HDMI and a USB-C cable, the Spectrum introduction booklet, and for this original UK release, a special Crash magazine issue. Alright, let's open the box. I've bought every single Retro Games Ltd product and I'm always impressed. I've consistently given their packaging full marks. So inside the main box we have another which slides out. This looks really nice with the outline of the Spectrum printed on the top. Opening this box up reveals the Spectrum computer itself. I love how they include a plastic dust cover. It's great to keep for when this device isn't being used and on display. Let's take it out of the box and have a look. Okay, this looks amazing. The modeling on all these products are perfect. I'm someone who is big on attention to detail and yet again, they've nailed it. Now, how does this compare to the original ZX Spectrum? Aesthetically, the design is almost identical. The keyboard looks like an exact duplicate. The only difference I can see from this angle is the name of the product. Rather than having Sinclair ZX Spectrum, we have Retro the Spectrum. As with all the new products from Retro Games Ltd, the idea isn't to produce a like-for-like replacement, rather to bring the experience of the original into the modern world. So you won't find the original ports and outputs. Instead, we have 4 USB ports, a HDMI output, and a USB-C port for power. We also have a few additional buttons for powering on the unit and returning to the home menu. Underneath we have the product sticker. I have serial number 9055. I love looking at these serial numbers to try and guess how many were made. If you have one, what number did you get? Next in the box we have the introduction booklet. Don't expect too much from this. It pretty much only has a few pages explaining how to connect this up. Retro Games Ltd do a fantastic job at documenting the software for all of their products. Check out their website for a full user manual. It runs through the entire system in great detail. There is also a printable version of this available on Amazon, with only the hardback version being in colour. What else have we got? Here's the Crash magazine. This is a special edition featuring the Spectrum. It's really nice that this was included. Of course, this includes advertising for other products, some of which are hard to get now. Some nice reading here with some of the Retro Games Ltd team sharing their memories of the original Spectrum, as well as some game reviews and other fun stuff. In the final box, we have our HDMI and USB-C cable. As with all the other products in recent times, a power supply is no longer included. And that's it. You're probably wondering why there isn't any included joystick or controller. Back in the day, the 48K Spectrum didn't have any joystick ports without purchasing a third-party interface device. So while a controller isn't included in this product, they are supported. Now that everything is out, let's connect it up and power it on. Starting up the system, we get this nice splash screen. The first setup screen is for us to select our preferred language. Notice that we get a legend of the keys we can use at the bottom of the screen. Although they aren't shown here, the cursor keys on the keyboard can be used. Let's select English. I'll also mention that some games do take this selection into consideration. The second setup screen is for us to select our preferred refresh rate. I did mention this before, and if you didn't grow up in the 80s and 90s, you probably would pick 60Hz, assuming that would be the better option. It really depends on whether the television standard in your country was PAL or NTSC. So PAL is 50Hz and NTSC is 60Hz. The ZX Spectrum was primarily a PAL system, and therefore most games assume a 50Hz refresh rate. So let's choose 50Hz. The system performs a quick change to test whether we can see it or not, and we do, and I'll accept it by pressing L, and we're done. We're then presented with this beautiful carousel, which looks similar to the 400 and the A500 minis, with all of the preloaded games available to choose. The background music is nice as well. But before we get into a game, let's continue setting this up. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, all of the keys and functions are visible. Let's press space for options. We then get a menu on screen with different settings. Let's look at our display options. Here we can switch between a sharp pixel display or enable a CRT effect. We can also change the border size. Sometimes the borders aren't used for anything other than showing loading sequences, so you may want to reduce them. Enable extended colors is for ULA plus support if a game makes use of it. We can also choose a frame to display around the area of the screen that isn't used by the emulator. There is a nice selection here, but I'm going to leave this off. Going down the menu, we can enter the language setting, which is exactly what we saw initially when we first booted the Spectrum. Then we have advanced options. System options provides the ability to configure the volume of the menu music. Boot mode allows you to select Carousel mode or Classic mode. Next in the list, switch to Classic mode. We'll go into this later. System information provides you with the current firmware build information. This is where you update the firmware as well, provided it is in the root of a plugged-in USB stick. If you want to read the legal notices, they're all here as well. To shut down a device, the safe option is here. And for whatever reason you want to reset the Spectrum back to an out-of-the-box experience, a factory reset option is available here as well. And currently this is the only way to access that 50Hz or 60Hz option, and by doing a reset you will lose any save states against the included games. Back at the Carousel, all of the included games are featured here with their box art and a brief description. You also get additional information such as whether the game is for 1 or 2 players, which Spectrum system the game runs in, as well as how many save slots you've used per game on the right of the cassette icon. If you look at the grey bar at the bottom of the screen, that provides you with information about which buttons are for what. Pressing the Q key will display the help screen for the game we currently have selected. This provides the mapping information for the game against the built-in keyboard. Pressing D will show you the keys for rewinding the game. K will show you the mapping information against the gamepad. Pressing the A key gives you access to 4 save slots with this nice animated cassette tape. Here you can save a game state, lock it in so you don't overwrite it, and load a game state. Perfect for all those difficult 8-bit games. Pressing the F key gives you the ability to rate each of these games. Pressing the L key sorts the games by author, genre, year, publisher, favourite based on your ratings, and back to title. Some of the included games originally loaded in 2 parts from cassette tapes. Early users of the Spectrum noticed that the Carousel only had the first parts of these games. Army Moves, Freddy Hardest, and Fantasy Game Over 2 are 2-parters. Retro Games Ltd were transparent at launch that completing the first parts of these games will enable their second parts in the Carousel. I'm sure this got some people thinking, what if there are more hidden games on the Spectrum? Retro Games Ltd revealed on their social media channels just before Christmas 2024 that there are indeed 6 hidden games in addition to the 3 second parts. As mentioned earlier, for Army Moves, Freddy Hardest and Fantasy, simply complete the first parts. To reveal Doomdark's Revenge, play The Lords of Midnight in a 60-minute session. For Gilligan's Gold, play Technician Ted for 30 minutes. For Hungry Horace, play Horace Goes Skiing for 30 minutes. For Horace and the Spiders, play Hungry Horace for 30 minutes. For Cybernoid, play Manic Miner and in level 1 type 6031769. For Pymania, play The Hobbit and type save. There we go, and we have a pretty packed carousel full of some fantastic games that really showcase the Spectrum. Now, let's play a game and see how well the advanced features work. Let's check out Saboteur Remastered. Starting the game up, it looks interesting. As someone who grew up with Commodore computers, my initial thought is that the graphics are similar to the VIC-20, just with slightly higher resolution. Having a play, the emulation seems pretty good, I don't notice any lag, and if I didn't know better, I'd think I was using an original ZX Spectrum. Alright, let's test out the rewind feature. For this, we press the O key and the home button on the back of the Spectrum during gameplay. A menu appears and we can rewind our gameplay. Remember, we can only go back 40 seconds. When we find a location to resume from, press fire. We get a 3-second countdown, and there we go. Now, if we want to save the state of the game to continue it tomorrow, press the home button on the back of the Spectrum. This returns us to the carousel, and you can see our game in the suspended state in the top right corner. Pressing enter will return back to the game, but let's save it by pressing the A key. Navigate to the spot you wish to use, and press M. To restore a saved game, simply select it and press the M key. And there we go. The great thing about these products by Retro Games is that they try to support compatible USB joysticks and controllers. They've even released the gamepad, which came out as part of the A500 Mini back in 2022. There is a variant with the Spectrum colors too, if you can find it online. I'll mention that the joystick with micro switches and the CX stick from the 400 Mini is also compatible. Let's say we don't have any of those, what can we use? I picked up this generic USB Super Nintendo clone gamepad many years ago for $10, and it works really well. You just have to figure out the mapping of the buttons. When you plug in a supported controller, the legend displaying which keys can be pressed updates to show buttons on the controller instead. And if you want to completely replace using the built-in keyboard, by pressing both the menu and home buttons on the controller whilst in the game, an on-screen virtual keyboard will appear. Alright, now it's time to load our own games from USB. I'll insert my USB stick formatted to FAT32 into the back port so that it's not in the way of any controllers. On the carousel, a new title appears called Media Access. Navigate to this and press fire. Here we get a media browser with all the content I copied across to the USB stick. I have a mix of games all in various formats. The user guide from the Retro Games Ltd website has a complete list of all the supported file extensions. Let's play one of my favourite games given this shares the same processor as the Amstrad CPC, Bombjack. Select the game using the mapped key or button, then the auto load button to launch. Not as colourful as the Amstrad CPC, but it is very playable. The Spectrum will try to determine the correct system type, but sometimes it won't get it right and the game may not load. If that happens at the browser, simply press the menu button to enter the game settings. Here you can select the Spectrum model the game works with. You can also make the screen border, tape loading speed adjustments, and activate ULA Plus support if required. The control type can also be selected and you can customize the mappings to the joystick or gamepad. This is great because you can map keys to buttons if you wish. What about navigating a virtual cassette player? I have Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles the coin-op in TZX format, but it's on 2 cassettes. In the media browser, simply select the first tape, then hover over the second and press the shoulder corner button on the controller. This creates a chain in the current media section. When you are asked to stop or press play on a cassette, you can activate the virtual cassette player by pressing the A key and the home button on the Spectrum. From here you can rewind, forward, pause and play. During gameplay, if you need to swap the tape, press the S key and the home button on the Spectrum. You will see the tape switch from 1 to 2 or from 2 to 1. And let's continue loading the game by pressing play. There we go. I'm very surprised to see this classic game on the Spectrum. It does play well, but it looks like I'm playing on a Nintendo Game Boy though. For games that have more than 2 cassettes, the Spectrum does support playlists. Check the user guide for more info on how to set these up. So what if you want to get into some basic programming? We saw before that by accessing the advanced options, we could switch to classic mode. By default, this starts up as the 48K model. You can change this of course by entering the advanced menu. If you insert a USB stick, a TAP file is created in the root folder as well, allowing you to save and load your programs. Let's try typing some code. The Spectrum keyboard does take some getting used to. Take a look at the keys. You can see that there are multiple keywords and characters available on each key. 10 space Shift P for print, symbol Shift P for quote, hello world, end quote, symbol Shift O for a semicolon, and enter. Line 20, space Shift G for go to, and we type in 10 to go to line 10, and enter. Shift R for run, and let's see what it looks like. Perfect, it runs just like the real thing. And I like how it asks if you want to continue scrolling. Now, let's try save our code. Shift S for save, symbol Shift P for quote, and we'll call this test, end quote, enter. The screen border flashes to show it is writing data to the virtual tape file. And there we go. Pressing the home button to exit back to the menu, we can access the media select option. As you can see, our code has been saved as test_WR. The WR means the image can be written to. Launching the tape loads our code into memory and brings us to the basic prompt. So what do I think of the Spectrum? Retro Games Ltd continue to impress with an accurate recreation of the popular ZX Spectrum 8-bit computer. Being able to emulate programs and games across the entire Spectrum series expands the library greatly. The included games are a good blend for those who want to experience the system but aren't experienced in the catalogue of games. This is the first time I've used the ZX Spectrum, and I can clearly see why these were so popular. There are some pretty enjoyable games for the Spectrum. Most of them I've played on other platforms such as the Commodore 64 and are obviously much better. But for what this is, there are plenty of good titles available and was a great alternative at the time. At pre-order, I paid $191.95 Australian dollars for the Spectrum. It also wasn't available from any Australian retailers, so it had to be purchased from Amazon's UK website. But that aside, I do think it's a well-built product. Retro Games have proven they're committed to improving their products and have already released a firmware update for the Spectrum. So if you do buy one, check out their website for the download. Overall, I recommend this product if you're a Specky fan or if you just want to experience it for the first time without the hassle of getting old hardware working. Let me know, did you buy the Spectrum as well? How do you find it? Or maybe this video has convinced you to go buy one. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching this episode. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the review. And why not subscribe to the channel for new episodes? I'll see you next time.